Welcome to Alaska Weather, a production of Alaska Public Media and the National Weather Service, Alaska Region. Produced and broadcast daily from the studios of KAKM, Alaska Weather provides complete forecasts, public, marine, and aviation for all of Alaska. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
Cook Inlet Tug and Barge is a marine transportation company specializing in harbor services with a primary marketing focus on the Port of Anchorage, providing their customers with quality-based service specifically tailored to their needs.
The National Weather Service.
Hello and welcome to the Tuesday edition of Alaska Weather. I'm meteorologist Kimberley Hoeppner and today is January 6, 2015. A little typo there. When we're not here, you can always check out our information at www.arh.noaa.gov. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. And also you can call our weather information line at 1-800-472-0391. Now on to your aviation, public, and marine forecast, starting out with the warnings and advisories across the area today. This afternoon we had a wind advisory come out, and this is going to be going out through Wednesday at 6 p.m. for gusty winds, mainly across the summits from the upper Koyukuk through the central interior and the Tanana Flats, and this is for gusty winds between 40 to 55 miles per hour through the summits. Now looking across the southeast, we also have a winter weather advisory down here. This winter weather advisory is going to be for blowing snow through also Wednesday at 6 p.m. as well as a winter storm warning that's going to run through Wednesday at 6 p.m. also. Now across the fjords is mainly where they're going to see the accumulation of snow down here. Up to 10 inches is still possible in that area. And then across the northern area, say for Juneau, between 4 and 8 inches of snow, all the way up to the Haines area, including Gustavus and Hoonah. And looking on to another closer look for the central interior, there's that wind advisory. All the advisories and wind warnings are out through Wednesday at 6 p.m. Looking at the headlines for today, we do have some active weather across the area. So we have a storm system that's moving into the southeast overnight, and then we have the gusty winds picking up across the central interior. Also, we have a continued unsettled pattern across the Gulf of Alaska, and we will be seeing some mixed precipitation across the southwest mainland as we head into midweek. Now let's take at the storm systems that are heading our way. Here's a well-formed comma cloud just to the south of the central Aleutians, putting that into motion. You can see that it's heading towards the central Aleutians, and cloud cover is all across the Bering Sea at this point, with this mature system merging with another system that is all across the western area of the Bering. Putting that into motion one more time, you can see this system is kind of fading out as we have this next mature system that's going to be taking over. Now looking closer to home, we have a mature system that's moving up into the southeastern Gulf of Alaska here. Watch this cloud cover as it pushes up very quickly. This is a fast-moving storm moving directly for the southeastern areas. Has been making progress through the afternoon. Elsewhere across the Gulf, it is in between systems. We have another weak lower pressure system here, and then another low pressure system to the south of the Alaska Peninsula that's not extremely well developed at this point, with this low pressure system across the eastern Bering kind of dropped down from the south yesterday. Elsewhere across the state, high pressure is in control from the northeastern Beaufort Sea coast down into the Yukon area. So mainly clear in those areas, with low pressure system going to take over the southern mainland and the Gulf of Alaska. Here's the low pressure systems that I was talking about from today, 980 millibar low, both these systems here that are moving up towards the Gulf of Alaska. An included front is bringing some warm air from the south, already seeing temperatures there in the 40s. We'll get to that in just a moment. So mainly rain to the south of this system with some snow across the interior areas of the southeast, but still clear, well not clear, but cloudy, just cloudy conditions across most of the south, clearing across the interior and along the Brooks Range and north, although there are a few clouds, weak trough axis kind of breaking up brought some snow across the northeast earlier today. But the southwestern areas also seeing some light snow activity during the afternoon hours around this low pressure system here in the eastern Bering, and then a mix of precipitation in the far western Bering with rain that was moving up through the western areas, including Shimia during the afternoon. Now during the overnight hours, the system's going to kind of stall out and weaken in the western areas of the Bering. The storm system across the eastern Bering is going to maintain, and then the low pressure system moving towards the southeast is going to be the biggest hazard during the overnight hours, bring some more snow there across the fjords areas, and then across the Haines and Juneau area north, we'll be seeing some snow accumulations overnight as this occluded front continues to move into this area. And you can see here's very tight gradient across the isobars just ahead of this low pressure system. And this is where we're going to see the gustiest winds. We're probably going to see some wind gusts not picking up across the Copper River Delta until later during the day on Wednesday out of the northeast. Across the interior areas, we will be on the lookout for the gustier winds between the high and the lower pressure to the south. We'll continue to see that squeeze through tonight. And then also we have this snow working into the Bristol Bay area. There is a freezing rain advisory that's going to be out for the overnight time, as this low pressure system from the south is going to help surge a little bit warmer temperatures into the Bristol Bay area. So be on alert. We might see some freezing rain patches across the southwest there. Also across the southwest, we're going to continue to see that into the early morning hours on Thursday morning. So be on the lookout for freezing rain across the southwest. Across the Gulf, we're going to mainly see some light rain with the windiest conditions stretching across the southeast. Gusty winds here are going to be between 45 and 60 miles per hour across the inner channels especially. So be on the lookout for those very gusty wind conditions, blowing snow, reducing visibilities. So the southeast is going to see the brunt of the weather on Wednesday, and then we'll also see the gustier winds across the summits there in the central interior, Tanana Flats and Upper Koyukuk. Otherwise, it looks quiet across the northern tier of the state as high pressure is going to be shifting the center across the Canadian Alaska border here, and across the northwest we will see some gusty conditions Wednesday afternoon. However, the northeastern Beaufort Sea coast will be quiet during the day on Wednesday. Then we'll have some gustier winds across the eastern areas of the Bering around this low pressure system that maintains its strength around 1,005 millibars, and slightly quieter as the system begins to die across the western areas of the Aleutians. Now this next low pressure system is going to basically send a wave up, and so we'll maintain low pressure, a broad area through Thursday across the eastern Bering, and this is where we're going to see the problems increase across the south central areas back towards the southwest as we have warmer air that's going to be advecting from the Gulf of Alaska and the North Pacific into the Kenai Peninsula area and back towards the southwest. So we'll see this mix of precip, pockets of freezing rain still possible in the early morning hours across Bristol Bay. So you'll want to stay on the outlook for updates for that area. We'll also see some light weak waves moving around the upper level systems. That'll bring some light snow showers across the west coast areas, and possibly a couple showers making it inland across the interior, mainly snow across the Copper River Valley, with mixed precipitation types along the Gulf as this air mass modifies with a warmer front moving up and maintaining across the southern areas of the Gulf of Alaska. We'll see precipitation tapering off across the southeast. We'll see some snow along the fjords across the southeast, but mainly a lighter shower activity, not much of a chance up towards Haines as we get into your day Thursday. It should be drier conditions for you there. However, the gustier winds may hang on across the southeast and along the interior through your day on Thursday, and quieter conditions again across the northern areas, with wind speeds though picking up along the coast out of the east around 30 to 40 miles per hour. Now let's take a look at your temperatures for today, fairly warm across the southeast in the mid to upper 30s, and temperatures reporting 41 at Kodiak Island and Annette this afternoon, with very cold temperatures across the interior dropping into the lower 30s. Minus 36 was actually reported across the interior there. Along the Arctic coast, we saw temperatures still below zero all the way through the Seward Peninsula, dropping back towards the southwest. Slightly warmer temperatures there, with temperatures from 0 to 20 degrees. And across the Alaska Peninsula, around 30 degrees, and slightly warmer across the central Aleutians in the lower 40s. And then for overnight low temperatures, expect temperatures to be in the low to mid 30s across all of the southeast, with a very dramatic change to the teens from Haines and going out towards the west along the Gulf, mainly in the 10 to 20 degree range. Across the interior, expect temperatures to stay well below zero, between minus 30 and minus 40. So be on the lookout for wind chills when those winds start picking up. Even across the southeast, wind chills will be very cool across the southeast, which is very uncommon for them. Across the northern tier, quiet with minus 10 to 20 degrees, and then across the southwest, minus 10, drastically changing up to the 20s across the Alaska Peninsula, and then maintaining in the mid 30s across the Aleutian chain. Looking at your highs for tomorrow, slightly warmer in the mid 30s to lower 40s across the Aleutians, and then across the Gulf of Alaska, you'll see mainly temperatures varying from 20 into the mid 30s, with temperatures reaching into the lower 40s again for across the southeast. Coldest temperatures across the central interior again, below zero, continues all the way through the Arctic coast, with slightly warmer temperatures along the west near the mid-teens for them. And then looking at your flying weather for tomorrow, mainly along this low pressure system that moves into the southeast, expect IFR flying conditions across the southeast and the southern areas of the Gulf, and some areas of the eastern part of the Bering, with MVFR conditions around the low pressure systems all the way out through the Bering, and possibly MVFR tomorrow morning for the eastern half of the Brooks Range. Looking at your past conditions in more depth, we'll see MVFR to improving to VFR for Anatuvik Pass and Adigan Pass. And looking at Lake Clark and Merrill Pass, both VFR for tomorrow. And we'll see Rainy Pass will be VFR and Windy VFR as well. Isabel Pass will be VFR, and Mentasta Pass will be MVFR. Tenita will VFR. Portage will go IFR to VFR for the possible chances of morning fog. Chilkoot, White Pass, both IFR conditions. Freezing levels are skirting right across the southeast and the northern areas of the Gulf, back towards the northern areas of the Bering Sea. And then 2,000 to 8,000 foot very warm conditions as you head towards the south there. Now looking at your icing for tomorrow, mainly below 5,000 feet across the southwestern mainland, Alaska Peninsula, with possible moderate conditions in this location, and then below 8,000 feet across the southeast and below 4,000 feet with some light icing across the eastern half of the Brooks Range. Mainly a westerly flow, and the systems are pushing up towards the southeast with this strong jet stream, mainly south of the chain at this point. And then a lighter flow across the mainland at 9,000 feet between 20 and 30 knots, with the strongest winds along the Bering Strait. Now across the southeast, expect a very strong wind out of the south direction tomorrow at 9,000 feet, 45 knots. And then a change of wind direction across a low pressure system in the Bering. And then same surface features at 3,000, 20 to 40 knots around this low pressure system, and strong winds between 40 and 60 knots coming up from the Gulf. Lighter across the southern interior, 45 knots across the northern areas. Therefore, your turbulence concerns are mainly going to be across the southeast, the Gulf waters, and across the southwest, and along the northern tier of the state near the Bering Strait. The most severe conditions are expected, and also across areas of the eastern Bering. In just a moment, we'll be back with your marine forecast.
Hi, I'm Dr. Jessica Cherry.
And I'm Forrest Kirst, a commercial pilot.
And today we're going to talk about an experiment we're doing using a small aircraft where we've mounted a sensor package to the aircraft to measure temperature, humidity, and pressure, as well as elevation and longitude and latitude of the airplane. And with the package, we're going to sample the local winter inversion here in Fairbanks, Alaska. And an inversion is where you have the surface atmosphere that's closest to the land is colder than the atmosphere above it, which is the opposite of normal conditions throughout the year throughout North America. Forrest, maybe you could tell us more about how a pilot experiences an inversion during the wintertime.
On the ground during our pre-flight, it's very cold out this morning. It's minus 28 centigrade, which is about minus 30 degrees Fahrenheit. So doing our pre-flight, it's extremely cold, hard on the airplane, hard on the people. For flying at the colder temperatures for doing these experiments, we're somewhere between minus 20 and minus 40 degrees. So we have to dress for that temperature inside the airplane as well as when we're outside of the airplane. When we're doing our pre-flight, we have to be extremely careful not to damage the plastic parts on the outside of the airplane. Extremely careful not to touch the metal parts with our fingers because we'll get contact frostbite. And we have to be real careful just with everything because it's just so cold. We have to dress as if we're going to be outdoors the whole time, and we use the aircraft heater to make it comfortable in our clothes and so we can see out the window. When we get the airplane running and we do our takeoff roll, we have increased engine performance and increased lift because of the colder, denser air. So we get off the ground earlier and have a better climb rate. When we reach the inversion layer, quite often the windows will fog up. The airplane's performance will decrease slightly because it's warmer air, produces less lift, and it produces less power from the engine.
When an inversion is present, air doesn't move anywhere, especially it doesn't want to move up. And so the classic look there is the steam out of the power plant or automobile exhaust, any kind of wood smoke or such, will come out of a chimney and then just flatten out and not move up. And if it moves horizontally at all, it's very slow, just creeping along. When you see that kind of lack of air movement, especially when there's clear skies, the sun is maybe low on the horizon, that is an inversion day in interior Alaska.
The reason it is so cool in the far north during winter is that the incoming radiation is at such a low angle. Now, as the atmosphere begins to cool in late fall, we start to get snowfall, which causes the land surface to be white, and light colors reflect incoming radiation right back, which causes additional cooling. And it's the reason we have a persistent inversion from late fall through early spring here in Fairbanks.
To get a radiation inversion to form, you need clear or mostly clear skies. You need no wind or very little wind down at the surface. And you need to have the sun under the horizon or high noon in December such that even if the sun is up, it's so low it doesn't really feed in any energy. When those three things happen, you lose heat to space from the surface of the Earth, but you're not getting any new heat in, and you get a very cold layer of air hugging the ground, cold, dense air that just lays down in the bottom of the valley. That's the classic radiation inversion setup.
So as we do our experiment with the aircraft, we're going to use a similar instrumentation package as is mounted on the standard weather balloons. We're going to measure temperature profiles, relative humidity, and pressure. And we're also going to tie the sensor package into a GPS unit, a global positioning system unit, so we know where the aircraft is located relative to the topography. So now I want to tell you about the instrument package that we're using on the aircraft. First of all, we use a NiCad 12-volt battery to power the data logger and the instruments. The data logger records the output from the meteorological sensors, which here include a temperature and relative humidity sensor and a pressure transmitter, which works like a barometer to measure atmospheric pressure. This particular one is going to plug into the static port in the aircraft, which also helps power some of the aircraft instruments. Finally, we have the Global Positioning System computer, which measures the latitude, longitude, and altitude of the aircraft. This one has an accuracy of about 10 meters, which is perfectly fine for what we're trying to do here. Here's a picture of our temperature and relative humidity sensor installed on the aircraft. So this is an FAA approved plate here mounted to the window. And we want the temperature sensor mounted towards the aft of the aircraft so we don't get air rushing in and it has a chance to equilibrate to the environmental conditions. And then finally, our pressure sensor is connected to this static port in the airplane, which again just measures the ambient pressure of the atmosphere where it hits this little hole in the plane. That's piped back into our pressure sensor inside. So one of the things that we're going to go out and do today is that we're going to attach the sensor package to the aircraft, and then Forrest is going to take off from Fairbanks International.
To get repeatability for the data, we flew in and out of Fairbanks International, Nenana Airport, Ladd Army Airfield, and Eielson Airfield. So we do a very slow climb up through the inversion layer, climbing at about 100 feet per minute. Just a very slow climb to the top of the inversion, find out where the ceiling is, and then once we're at the ceiling of the inversion, we do very slow porpoising up and down through the inversion to see if it's stable, if it's got different characteristics throughout it. Then we get to the next airport and we do a very slow descent into the airport at about 100 feet per minute, all the way to the ground.
All right, and now on to your ice conditions. Flash freezing across the Cook Inlet has brought some ice back, and it is probably going to continue to form as we get very cold during the overnight hours, and then we'll see a warming trend again. Now from the Norton Sound and north along the west coastal areas, be on the lookout for some ice that is kind of shallow, not very solid. There have been some breakthroughs, so be on the lookout from Barrow and south there as the ice may be weak in those areas. Now looking at the most hazardous area for the next day is going to be the southeast, as they're going to have the very gusty winds, gales across the inner channels and outer waters here with higher gusty conditions across the area. We'll first start off with the north and easterly flow, with the southeasterly flow as you head towards the southern areas near the Dixon entrance. And also we'll see seas between 6 and 11 feet across these inner channels. The outer waters will be right around 10 to 11 foot for the seas, higher swells there. And then as we look at your Thursday forecast, the wind direction is going to be primarily out of the east and north, with slightly out of the southeast here as you get down towards Ketchikan area. And then we'll see gale warning criteria across the northern Lynn Canal, and then small craft across the other areas. And seas on this day will be between 5 and 8 feet across those inner channels, and then the outer waters will see between 10 and 11 feet. Looking across the western areas of the Gulf, we'll see mainly 20 to 30 knots small craft advisory in the western Gulf waters. The Prince William Sound will see primarily a northeasterly flow here around 10 knots with higher gusts to 25 knots, and across the Cook Inlet 15 to 30 knots, strongest as you get towards the Shelikof Strait area. Gale warning criteria for Wednesday 35 knots. Seas across the western Gulf waters will range between 7 and 15 feet, with the highest seas near the Kodiak Island. Prince William Sound at 4 feet, the Cook Inlet 3 to 4 feet, and 7 to 11 feet across the Barren Islands and Shelikof Strait. On your Thursday, expect a north to easterly flow across the entire area, with mostly gale criteria across the western areas of the Gulf. Prince William Sound, however, will be 15 knots out of the east, and then a northeasterly flow, 20 to 35 knots, with the stronger winds from the southern part of the Cook Inlet down towards the Shelikof Strait. Seas on this day will be between 14 and 17 feet across the Gulf waters. Prince William Sound 3 to 4 feet, and then 5 to 13 feet mainly across the Cook Inlet and Shelikof Strait. Now also look at stronger small craft winds out of the north and northeast direction on your Wednesday across the Alaska Peninsula and Bristol Bay. Of course, rain and snow for these areas. 7-foot seas on the Bristol Bay side, 9 to 13 feet across the Pacific side. And then not much change, still small crafts across Bristol Bay on Thursday and just south of Kodiak Island there, mainly out of the easterly direction, and then a change of direction as you get towards the western areas of the peninsula, out of the west to northwest direction. And we'll see seas on this day 6 feet across the Bering Strait, 9 to 13 across the North Pacific. And then on your Wednesday, lighter winds across the Aleutian chain between 10 and 20 knots across the entire area. Seas would be between 7 and 12 feet. And then on your Thursday, not much change under small craft advisory criteria. And then we'll see a northerly flow changing direction across the area towards the west with an easterly flow as you head out towards Shimea. Looking at your Wednesday forecast across the western coastal areas, looking at small craft advisory out of the north to northeast direction, and seas would be between 5 and 10 feet on Wednesday. And not much change on your Thursday forecast with mostly small craft advisories. Seas in ice-free waters will be between 6 and 8 feet. Looking at your north coast and northwest coast, we'll see a brisk wind advisory towards the the Kotzebue Sound, and then along the northern areas expect an easterly flow. On your Thursday forecast, stronger winds, especially across the eastern Beaufort Seacoast, brisk winds there, and all out of the east direction at 30 knots towards the Kotzebue Sound. And a recap for tonight, low pressure moving into the southeast, bringing mix of rain and snow. Be on the lookout for those winter advisories and the wind warning across the south, and stronger winds across the central interior. Light snow and a mix of precipitation coming into Bristol Bay, and then looking at your Wednesday forecast tapering off later in the afternoon. And then the southwest will see the mixed precipitation continue. Hope to see you back here tomorrow night. Have a good night.
These forecasts are to be used for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating. Alaska Weather is made possible by the following sponsors.
The National Weather Service.